It's time to get educated on the craziness impacting K-12 classrooms and college campuses around the world. This is the Dr. Duke Show.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Dr. Duke Show. We have got a packed program for you. So today, please hit that share button and let's get educated. Today's show is sponsored by Mike Lindell and our friends at MyPillow. This week, MyPillow is offering their 6-piece towel set in 7 different colors for just $40. I was at Target the other day. There's nothing like that there, I tell you. That's 63% savings when you simply use the Dr. Duke code. That's DRDUKE. I know you spend a lot of money at Christmas, but everybody needs to be toweled. Okay, today we head to Virginia, also known as the epicenter of this crazy politically correct reshaping of the universities. It's the California of the East Coast, where liberal school systems are daring their new Republican governor to challenge them. But we start with a William County School Board meeting where an emotional father attempted to talk to the elected officials about his daughter who was sexually assaulted in school. Their response was stunning. To set this up a little further, we got a dad who was getting stonewalled by his school board. His daughter was sexually molested. She was assaulted, and she can get no answers. And what's most galling about this, we've seen this for the last year at the Dr. Duke Show. All these moms and dads show up at these school board meetings with evidence in their hand, with great questions. Their kids have been neglected, abused, in some cases even raped when a dad got dragged out by police. All this is going on, and they sit there at those board meetings, and no one says a word. There is absolutely no accountability. This one's going to break your heart. Take a look. A young girl who was assaulted, dad's trying to get answers, and a note, please, in particular. The glib, the emotionless, the evasive way in which the school board deals with this.
Where do the administrators from the school find the rules and regulations of what they're supposed to, they have policies and procedures?
Mr. Dar, I can have someone work with you on that if you want to step over to the side. They can go over where you can find all that.
So I want the public to know. That's why I come here, because I want the public to know.
We won't be answering you, but you can certainly keep asking.
Well, I mean,
while you're standing.
I want to know the school's definition of sexual assault, because my daughter was told that she's standing right there, that if it's above the clothes, it's not sexual assault. And that's the way the county does the kids here. It's messed up. That's my daughter, and no one wants to do nothing about it. You suspend the boy for 1 day for improper touching, and I don't think that's right. So somebody needs to do something. Somebody needs to look in the matter and do something, because there's more kids out there that y'all not doing nothing and letting stuff slide under. And the only person who's hurting is the kids.
So the father's name is Jeffrey Dar, and he was talking about, and he pointed to his 13-year-old daughter who was at the meeting and was brave enough to stand up and be facing the school board, who again didn't do anything about it. Now, as you kind of heard in there, the school did suspend the alleged attacker for 1 whole day. And so this, when I take a look at this, there's a couple different ways to analyze it. Number one, because it is a school board and the school board does have rules, and he was talking during the, I'm guessing, the 2-minute comment limit, yeah, technically they can't say anything. But the simple fact that the content he was talking about and that this was happening obviously needs to, during open discussion, they need to talk about it, and I'm guessing they didn't. So they were following the rules during the proper meeting protocols. However, the fact that this even was needed is what the main issue is here. And that's why for a father or a mother, anyone to have to go in front of public comments and air this, sad story for everyone to hear shows what the state of the school system is.
But there's stupid rules. I mean, they may be following the rules, but those rules are utterly arbitrary. I mean, the idea that you can't, look, I get that for reasons of legalese, you can't divulge information about the case. But what the dad was asking for there before it was all said and done is, what are your procedures? Tell us. That's not, they ought to be able to be very transparent about that. This is how we handle these cases. This is why we won't talk to you now. This is how we deal with these kind of situations. I can't get into the day-to-day of this, of why this particular student got his punishment the way that he did, but this is how we try to handle things. And another thing, wouldn't you think that with all of this going on, and how the school is all in on sensitivity and feelings and inclusion and making people feel welcome, well, as long as you're a progressive kid like a transgender, why don't you have counselors there? Why don't you have people who could then, right, from a counseling perspective, pull the father aside and say, you come on back here, we're going to give you some more information. And it's just something that rubs me the wrong way. And it's the you can keep talking, we're not going to answer you stuff.
Well, if you want to parse through exactly what that man said, yeah, he shouldn't have said it that way. He did say that he would get the answer. I'm just saying from the technical perspective of the meeting setup, I understand why he responded the way he did up until the point of, you can keep talking, but we're not going to answer you, which was a little glib. But during open comments then, or open discussion, is when they should have had an actual discussion about it, and they should get to the root of this. Now, we don't know the backstory either in terms of, did the father go to the school? Did the father look online for any of this? Obviously, we know in a lot of school districts, trying to find out what the actual rules are buried beneath all the bureaucracy of all the other crap they put out there. But in this situation, I just in the end hope the man got answers and something was actually done.
And if indeed they gave a one-day suspension for a boy who actually put his hands on a girl, even if it was above the clothing in a sexual way, well, that's a pretty outrageous step, right? But when you look at the news here, one of the things that's happening that's very alarming is boys now, who for a lot of time in the public schools had been ignored and neglected and treated as second-class citizens, boys now are getting breaks with regards to sexuality. Part of the problem is that the schools seem to be acting as if, hey, we're teaching your kids radical sexuality at younger and younger ages. You can't really blame kids for sampling, for lack of a better word. And we will see this in stories all this week and perhaps next week as well, where the law gets involved here, and people don't seem to realize anymore. They're not willing, at least the public schools aren't willing to recognize what just 5 years ago would have been a major problem. Sexual assault seems to be being minimized now across the country in the public schools.
And we're going to talk about this in our upcoming story.
Are you a fan of the show? Consider joining the Patriot Club. Your tax-deductible donation of $99 a year keeps us going. Simply visit patriotclub.us. That's patriotclub.us to pledge your support and receive our signature tumbler as a token of our appreciation. We've got much more to come. Stay with us.
Staying in Virginia and going to our most disliked school district, Loudoun County. Remember the story we talked about many times now? It was my story of the year last year, where we had the teen rapist, 15-year-old boy, raped a couple girls, or one girl, and then sexually assaulted another. He wore a skirt, everything. We've talked about it many a times. Well, just so everyone's aware now, he won't be on the sex offender registry. The judge, I guess, decided, well, I'm going to backtrack on it. Basically, a juvenile court judge ruled to place the boy on the sex offender registry for life, but now we're just going to revoke it. Loudoun County Judge Pamela Brooks said, "This court made an error in my initial ruling. The court is not vain enough to think it's perfect, but I want to get it right." So again, a 15-year-old boy goes into a girl's bathroom at Stonebridge High School in Loudoun County, rapes a girl, then just gets moved to another school district, then sexually assaults another girl, and then now is not going to be on the sex offender registry. That's the summation of this.
Well, last week we did the story, and we were actually kind of pleased that there did seem to be some justice. Just a week ago, this female judge made a very hard stand. At one point she said, you frighten me. She said, literally said that your case history that goes back before all these, he had a case history before Loudoun, what happened in the Loudoun public schools. The idea here that you frighten me, she said, and that even though you're 15, your inability to show remorse for what you've done, the attitude you've had since you've been brought into this national spotlight, the fact that you were transferred from one school to another and engaged in exactly the same behavior, you frighten me. She said, yours is one of the most frightening case stories I have ever seen, and within 1 week, the one serious penalty he got was being forced to register for the rest of his life as a sex offender, which he is. And within the space of 1 week, we don't know if political pressure got to her, if somebody from on high wrote back to her, but that changed pretty quick.
So it gets even worse because the attorneys of the boy, William Mann, Jonathan Moore, and Caleb Kirshner, by the way, Caleb Kirshner sits on the Loudoun County Board of Supervisors, so that's political to note. They push the narrative that actually the boy, the 15-year-old rapist, was the victim. Now, Kirshner said that he's at the center of a national media outcry and that this has resulted in the high level of scrutiny. So because a teenage boy did something very, very, very bad, when he's in the national spotlight and being called out on it, well then, oh no, now he's the victim. And now Kirshner, who's a Republican, said that we are setting him up for failure. We've never concentrated on the boy. We're not even giving this young man a chance. And he says that the 15-year-old has been cheated by the failure of the system. Well, that part maybe, but everything else, no.
You raped 2 girls. Do I need to say anything else? Do I really at this moment need to have to these idiots on these school boards or these county committees? Do you really need to go farther than that? What if it was your daughter? How would you feel if it was your daughter? We just got doing a story where a dad is trying to figure out why you're not talking to me and why you're not doing your due diligence. Why are you punishing a boy with 1 day suspension for what appears to be a sexual assault? Why are you doing this? And now you got this situation here where we're setting up this boy for failure. You failed him. And you know where the failure was? When this kid, who obviously has mental issues, decided that he wasn't transgender, but he liked wearing women's clothes. And for that, you let him go into the showers and the bathrooms with girls. You are the enablers, not the rest of us.
And so something good coming from this is that Jason Mieres, who's the new attorney general in Virginia, said that his office does plan to investigate the district after the school board, as we know, allegedly sought to cover it up for the incidents because, it would have been looked pretty bad. But at the same time in the news, Loudoun County needed someone to take the blame. So basically they outed the chief of staff, Mark Smith. He got booted out of that role because, someone has to take the fall. Someone has to go because it's national outcry. And so he's the one. Now, a school board member had said that, according to that Mark Smith had obligations under Title IX and they weren't met. He was not a Title IX expert, but it was his job. Someone had to pay, and it was him. Well, yes, clearly.
Apparently paid worse than the young boy who did the raping is going to do.
Exactly. Now, the county says they are searching for a person who has Title IX experience, so if anyone out there looking for a job, you can go there. The independent report regarding the school districts dealing with the sexual assaults, by the way, was finished, their own version of it, but the district officials will not be releasing it to the public. Wade Byard of the district pointed to Virginia Code and attorney-client privilege for not releasing the information. But we know the father of the first victim, Scott Smith, he's the one who also got arrested at the school board meeting and then had the police come to the school when he found out that his daughter was raped. Anyway, he says, of course they're not going to release what happened. What happened is horrific. There are so many high-up players involved in this cover-up. It's just unbelievable.
Yeah, and we would be extremely remiss not to point out that if this had not been some confused trans issue, this would be a lot easier. If it was an actual identifying boy, some athlete who broke into the girls' bathrooms and raped a girl, this would be a very different case. And I wonder if that judge, by the way, who gave such a serious sentence to the boy and then retracted it, I wonder if that was the standard narrative. A young athlete breaks into the school bathroom to rape a girl. He's transferred and rapes again. Somehow, I don't think if he were that situation, a typical cisgendered boy engaging in rape, I don't think it would have been nearly as complicated as it is now.
Stay tuned because we have more from Loudoun County.
Today's show is sponsored by Clean Start Hand Sanitizer. For an odor-free foam hand sanitizer that lasts 2 hours and provides 19 refills, visit freedomproject.com/clean. That's KLEEN to order yours today.
We're sticking with Loudoun County for right now because mask mandates. They're everywhere across the nation, but in Loudoun County, they're making it so you're being basically segregated. We had a freshman boy at Loudoun Valley High School who asked his principal point blank, Ms. Ross, why are you segregating us like this? The boy, and you're about to hear the audio he recorded it on his phone, Chance Harcrow, he's one of several students who were forced into the school's auditorium because, and 6 feet apart, of course. He was barred from actually going to class. He was put back into online learning. He was not allowed to eat lunch with his peers. He was not allowed to talk to his peers. So he's clearly they're being ostracized out there, and it's because they're not wearing a mask. Take a look.
I said, why are you just segregating us like this from everyone else? I'm just curious.
So do you think it's my decision alone?
No, but I think you definitely contribute to the fact that we're in here. I'm just assuming. I am wondering though why.
So since the mandate is for people to wear masks because of safety, those who don't want to wear masks would be what?
I don't know. That's for you to.
Well, I think you're old enough to think that through.
Well, I would like to understand why you are actively discriminating and segregating. Yes, you are, because you are putting us here because we're not wearing a mask.
You're making a choice.
No, you are putting us in here.
So are we having a conversation, or do you want to be accusational?
So the thing that really gets me is the way this teacher, this principal, starts by playing the Socratic game with him and the condescension. You're old enough to know the consequences. And the minute he throws it right back in his face, she refuses to talk anymore because you're being accusative. And what's never mentioned here, what should be mentioned, is the fact that in Virginia, the so-called mandate on which the principal's case stands is no longer a mandate. When you had a Democrat governor, and this was the unofficial law of the land, right, you could have taken that posture. You have a new sheriff in town, a new law, right? You know it is no longer required for children to show up in masks, and you suddenly are not following the law.
Yeah, so Governor Glenn Youngkin actually signed an executive order that said that parents have the right to opt out. Now, individual school districts in the entire state, and we're going to talk about another one in a couple moments, they are putting it back into place. So it's become this entire fight amongst school districts across the state. And in this instance, we have the freshman boy and another girl actually who went up and talked to the principal. Now, the issue, especially with this principal, Sue Ross, parents are saying that she's been hiding behind the assistant principals and that she's not been speaking to the students or to any of the parents. And so just within the one school, within the one district across the state, they're having many issues. Now, there was a girl who also went up to talk to Ross with that boy, and she actually says, so if this doesn't get decided, if we're not going to wear masks, how do you expect us to learn? And the principal says, so that's where I was saying choices have consequences. So I hope you're in Schoology, which is their online learning platform, and learning. So she's making it so that all the students who don't wear masks have to be in that auditorium and are supposed to be online learning, which we know how well that's gone for everyone.
Meanwhile, in Fairfax, just down the road from Loudoun, we have superintendent who orders students suspended if they show up without wearing masks. So again, they hid behind the law. Now the law is not on their side, and guess what the public schools are going to do? They're going to do it anyway. They're going to suspend kids who don't follow their policy.
Yep, Superintendent Dr. Scott Brabrand issued a 34-page principal briefing for everyone to apparently have to look at. So a principal briefing, it's a PowerPoint presentation, complete with some visuals so that you can understand what's happening. But he presented it at a meeting with administrators, ordering that students, basically, you wear your mask or you get suspended. And Azra Nomani, who's from Parents Defending Education, actually posted the presentation for all to see. So we have a couple of the various slides there. Now, one example is slide number 12, which was headlined, R2109 regarding mask refusal, the district instructed administrators to continue to follow existing regulations and practices, which would mean they have to wear them.
But they're not existing anymore, right?
Well, it's existing
In their
back
minds.
at some point. Yeah, in their
Yes.
minds. Any student who refuses to wear a face covering while indoors on school property or during FCPS provided transportation and who is not otherwise exempt will be precluded access to face-to-face, which is funny when they say face-to-face because you're wearing masks, so it's diaper to diaper. Anyway, instructional programming until they comply with the requirements of this regulation.
You see this again. Face mask noncompliance, mask refusal. Who? Student without significant cognitive, sensory, and or medical needs who refuses to wear a face mask as required. School staff will redirect the student by reminding the student that the requirement to wear a face mask indoors while at school. Staff will seek support from available services. The staff will refuse to if the students continue to refuse. We're talking about educational or physically or mentally challenged students who don't wish to go along with this. It goes down farther, right? If following contact with the parent guardian, the student continues to refuse to comply, the school will inform the parent guardian, and ultimately, students excluded from school due to face mask refusal will have access to learning simply through asynchronous online education. So they've got it all figured out. If you're a special needs kid who doesn't wear the mask, right? And nowhere, I love the fact that nowhere, anywhere, as it said, what the new policy is, what the rest of the state is dealing with, what Youngkin signed as an executive order. That doesn't seem to be bothering the schools of Virginia. It doesn't matter whether if you got a Democrat in Virginia governor, well, then you just follow along him. If you don't, well, you make the rules up as you go along.
Well, and according to their instructions here, the response to not wearing a mask will be swift with a 1-day out of school suspension. So show up not wearing a mask, you get out of school free.
Wait, 1 day for not wearing a mask, 1 day for sexually assaulting a child. Well, boy, that's what you call disparate punishment, isn't it? Hey there, it's time for some real education on instant classics. This week I thought we would take a look at classical mythology, paintings of classical mythology, but not done by the classical peoples themselves, but by the modern world. How does this modern world over the last couple of years, when they paint Greek mythology, how do they appropriate it? How do they change it? How does the Greek and Roman myths change when they are done by moderns living in modern society? Today's first painting here is called The Cyclops by Odilon Redon. It was some painted any time between 1898 and 1940. We're not exactly sure. This is an interesting painting, though. When you look at the elements that make this what it is. I mean, you've got there is the giant peeking over the rock formation, and you can see the Cyclops there as he looks up, looking for the naiad, the young woman. That the young goddess, the young nymph, who is the object of his love, and he's gawking, looking for her, and you can see how she herself, in the lower right-hand part of the picture, she blends in beautifully as a goddess of nature, of wood, of tree. It does not surprising, or water, not surprising that she blends in so perfectly. So she's camouflaged there, and he only has the one eye, and it really is kind of an arresting image. That big thing looking over the mountain at her. The painting itself depicts the myth of the love of Polyphemus for a naiad named Galatea. It was painted in oils on board, then mounted on wood, and is now in the Kröller-Müller Museum in the Netherlands. The painting has been variously dated between 1898 and 1914, as we said. Asleep is Galatea on the lower right, her naked body blending beautifully with the flowers. In the upper half of the painting, the head and shoulders of the monstrous Polyphemus tower above a mountain ridge as he turns his one eye in the naiad's direction. It appears Polyphemus had hidden himself from the nymph behind the rocky terrain, too shy to directly confront her helpless form. Although the name given to the painting refers to the figure of classical myth, the subject may also carry overtones of the one-eyed giants that populate the folklore of Aquitaine, the region where Redon grew up. His depiction of the Cyclops bears a strong resemblance to real-life cases of cyclopia. Cyclopia, it's an actual medical condition. Doesn't happen very often, but that's what you're seeing there in the picture of the monster, what a actual case of cyclopia might look like, which is believed to be of possible origin of the myth of the Cyclops themselves.
All right, before we go, let's show some love to our Patriot Club members. And today, we're giving that special shout out to Gary from Yakima, Washington. Gary, thank you for supporting us. And that wraps up this show for Freedom Project. I'm Katie. He's Dr. Duke.
Until next time, stay educated, my friends.